All right, welcome everybody to Building Meals or Building Healthy Meals on a Budget. I especially want to thank our community partner Cheryl from Natural Grocers, who's the nutritional health coach there. And I'm just going to turn it on over to her. It's all yours, Cheryl. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and start with a class on how to build a healthy meal. So our goal with today's class was to help you have a little foundational information on how to support optimal health by creating a balanced meal. We're also going to talk about why we want to do this, like the specifics, how our body is affected by the foods we eat. And then we're going to cover some ways that we can make this the most cost-effective and energy kind of efficient to kind of fit within your parameters of your life as well. But of course, as always, I am here from Natural Grocers to be able to schedule a coaching session one-on-one to talk specifically about your goals and things that you would like to move towards in regards to optimal health. And I can help you in that journey. And just call the Natural Grocers 541-266-9473, and we could schedule something one-on-one. It is over the phone and virtual currently. Later on, we may have more options. But today we're going to cover some basics, some stuff that's going to be pertinent to everybody. And so that's going to be that foundational piece of getting nutrients from our foods that we're eating. We all have to eat, right? We may as well give our bodies the best nutrients we can. And first off, I do want to give the disclaimer, I'm not intending on diagnosing, treating, or mitigating any disease. And there are potential interactions between prescription medications as well as supplements and foods. So it's best to be informed of any potential interactions with anything that you might be taking. And at Natural Grocers, we are dedicated to providing science-based nutrition education, like classes like this, as well as in store, we have a lot of resources for you, which we'll talk about a few of those as well today. We're also committed to the welfare of the community and our employees and providing high quality products at affordable prices to make health and wellness attainable for everybody. And so everybody's heard about all the fad diets, right? What you should, what you shouldn't do, this diet, that diet. And you're like, okay, now what do I do? Like I'm getting pulled in multiple directions. Well, we're going to talk about how you can feed your body to support optimal health and support its ability to have that balanced energy, balanced mood, and also support immune health. And a lot of that's going to have to do with how you're piecing your meals together to support blood sugar balance. So when you look at the basic healthy meal, you want it to look something like this diagram to the right. So roughly about half your plate vegetables, and you'll see that the next greatest portion is going to be your protein sources, and then healthy fats and additional carbohydrates as needed. And we're going to delve into those details here in a bit. So what we do feed ourselves is basically what we get out, right? So what we're giving our body are the foundational pieces to repair, be able to support its function. And so the best that we can feed it, the best our body has the resources to be able to do what it needs to do. And a lot of that, again, has to do with our blood sugar balance and how the foods that we do eat are going to affect that blood sugar balance. Now, blood sugar is that glucose, so blood sugar that is circulating throughout our body. Our body uses that as a source of energy, and it's going to be coming primarily from things like sugars, carbohydrates, and it is a major energy source for the body. When we have an abundance of blood sugar, our body has to do something with that excess. So we really only need about 3 grams of sugar at any one moment in time. And so any additional sugars the body has to store for later. And we're all familiar with what kind of storage our body uses to make with that excess sugar. So it's going to be essentially that body fat. And so that's going to be our storage form of energy. And so when we're eating a lot of those, like we said, sugars, carbohydrates, what happens is we have a lot of quick energy sources, quick sugars that feed into the body pretty readily. So we have quick energy, which also is quick come, quick go. And every time we get quick energy, every time throughout the day, whether it's a meal, a snack, any excess is stored for later. We also might experience things like that energy rush, maybe jittery, we can't focus if we have a little too much sugar. And then what our body does in order to be protective, because a lot of blood sugar in our system all at once is damaging to the body, what our body does is it uses what it can and then saves the rest for later as that fat. But because this is a dramatic increase a lot of times, our body also will respond pretty dramatically as well. And that then is followed by a blood sugar crash. And in that blood sugar crash, then we've gone from having too much energy to too little energy. And when we have too little energy, we might be fatigued because our body doesn't have what it needs in order to be able to function. And so our body says to us, okay, you need to start getting some quick energy again because I can't function. I'm going to crave something that's quick energy. It might be like whatever's around, right? Those candies in the jar on the desk, or the pastry that's in the break room, or, you know, who knows what else. But just whatever's around, we grab it. And that just tends to get us right back where we started, where we're going back and forth between these highs and lows, which are creating a lot of, I would say, dysfunction, because we don't have that steady energy where we can support healthy energy levels, support that healthy mood and healthy balanced cravings, and that healthy weight maintenance, right? And so the first thing we want to do is create some balance in our meals so that we can have that balance, that healthy, stable energy, clear thinking, reduce cravings. And so there are some ways that we can better support our energy without having that constant, quick energy source of refined sugars, carbohydrates, bread products, like crackers, pastas, typical American diet, right? Pizza, pasta, you know, and the thing there is balance. It's not that we can't have some of those things. We also need to balance the other components of that meal to help better support stable energy. And so I have provided you a handout to be able to kind of create a balanced meal. We're going to take a look at that a little bit later, but what we want to do is take a look at how we are building our meals. If we're still hungry a couple hours later, or we're feeling some of these, experiencing some of these things that we just talked about, maybe our meal isn't the most balanced. It isn't serving our purpose the greatest, right? So we evaluate what we did do, and we're going to try to adjust it to better serve our purposes. And so the first place to start is looking at what my sources of food are. Are they foods that are whole and natural? They look a little bit more close to their original state and nature, minimally processed. Those are going to provide our body a lot greater nutrients and better support our needs. So that means less packaged products, less boxed and bagged foods, more whole foods like those vegetables, fruits, maybe nuts, seeds, snacks type things, and proteins. We also want to look at the quality of our foods that we're eating as well. So if we're getting higher quality foods, we're getting greater nutrients, and we're minimizing some of those things we don't want to be exposed to, like purchasing organic fruits and vegetables. So they're grown without synthetic pesticides and herbicides, which are well known, have well-known impacts on the brain, nervous system, the hormone systems within the body. So we're minimizing that when we're eating organic fruits and vegetables. And if anybody's checked out the environmental work groups website at ewg.org, every year they produce their list of what they call their dirty dozen and clean 15. And it's a list of fruits and vegetables and their level of contamination with pesticides. So they take a look at which pesticides are present on certain foods and what quantities of those pesticides, and then also which ones contain some of the most concerning pesticides. So that would be the dirty dozen. And then the clean 15 are the ones that typically contain the least contaminants of those pesticides. So that can give you kind of a guide. I mean, I think it's eye-opening to even just see. They'll say like, this one contains like 20 different, and you're like, wow, really? There are 20 different? Like, I didn't know. And I think it's just eye-opening to see which ones are more typically pesticide ridden. And a lot of times, I know apples are typically up there on the list. Sometimes strawberries.
So Cheryl, is that list of the dirty dozen clean 15, is that something that like they update it yearly? How often do they do that?
They do update it yearly, and you just have to go to their website, and they'll actually, you can look at the list, and then you can also download an app for their list as well. So you can use it as a resource. So if you have to prioritize what you're eating, organic or not eating organic, that definitely would be a guiding factor. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And they have some other neat stuff on there as well. They have more information on body care products as well, if you want to clean up your other other things in your life as well. So they just have a really great website, a lot of great resources there as well. But when we're looking, because we're focusing today on more food and nutrients, we're going to take a look at what a healthy meal looks like. So something that's going to be balancing to that blood sugar and get us the greatest nutrients that we can is going to be something that's built around vegetables. So vegetables generally should always be the greatest portion on our plate. Typically about a half your plate should be vegetables. And then the next greatest portion is going to be that protein. And we're going to talk about quality proteins, and then always having some healthy fats. And then for desserts and treats, ideally, fruits are going to make a really great part of that. And for me, like I'm pretty I love fruit, and I a lot of times don't like to do anything to fruit. I just like to eat it by its, either not necessarily by itself, but alongside maybe like a nut butter. And for me, that's like perfect. I don't know about anybody else, but and I experiment with things like the nut butters. Like I'll do walnut butter. That's one of my new favorites. So yeah, it's like a combination walnut and cashew, and it's I don't know, it's novel, I guess. It's not your typical peanut butter or even almond butter, but yeah, I find it delicious. So. But we want to definitely make sure that at least half that plate is going to be vegetables. So ideally about 2 servings per meal or more. And general rule of thumb for servings for vegetables is about a cup of those leafy green vegetables is a serving, and then about a half a cup of all other vegetables is going to be a serving. So if you're having a salad, it's probably going to be about 2 cups of greens, unless you're mixing other veggies with it, and then about a cup of other vegetables if you're eating those as a side to your meal. So your vegetables are some of the most nutrient dense foods you can possibly eat. And I like to say they're made that way so you can eat more of them, right? They're not as filling, they're not as dense, they're heavy usually. And so you can get more of them in because you're supposed to get more in. They provide a lot of vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, as well as that fiber component. And a lot of that's going to be supportive of blood sugar balance because fiber slows the release of sugars from your food, but then also providing those nutrients to better be able to utilize the sugars in your foods as well. And then quality proteins. So some quality proteins at each meal. Again, a general rule is about 20 to 30 grams of protein at each of 3 meals a day to provide general needs. And of course, that's going to vary depending upon individual. We're all different sizes, we're all different in our physical activity levels, so that'll also alter some of our needs. But some of the best sources, so quality proteins, we talk about having that amount of those building blocks of the proteins, those amino acids in proportion to our body's need. And some of the best sources are going to be things like meat, eggs, and cheese. And again, we want to make sure that we're getting quality as well. So when we talk quality, when it comes to meat, it'd be things like grass-fed meat. It's raised on pasture or eating the grass like it normally would in its natural environment. So it's healthier and it provides more. So it's just like us eating all those whole veggies, get more out of it. They're getting more out of their meal and providing us more nutrients as well. Also been found to have, with the grass-fed beef, greater amounts of those healthy fats, healthy fatty acid profile, and that are supportive of that balanced inflammatory response. And then also some other specific nutrients, like some of the minerals, some of the vitamins, like vitamin A and E, but then also CoQ10 and even L-carnitine, things that are going to be supportive of the heart health, and then also utilization of fat for energy. And same with the CLA. And when you purchase meat products from Natural Grocers, you can be sure that it does not contain any added hormones or growth promoters. We don't raise them with antibiotics, and they aren't fed animal byproducts as well. And we also have options for organic. So again, a portion for protein, when you're talking about meat itself, is going to be roughly about the size of the palm of the hand, is going to be an adequate portion to get you roughly that 3 to 4 ounces of protein at each meal, which will provide that around a little over or close to that 20 grams per meal. So you can just think sizes versus having to like count grams if you'd like. And then as we talked about, when you're eating those snacks, things like your even like sugary fruits, maybe pairing that also with a protein will also support that blood sugar balance. Proteins, particularly meat, does not contain, it's like very little if none sugars. And so it's not going to have that negative impact on our blood sugar. But we all know when we eat more protein, it's like a heartier meal. It sticks with us longer, provides more of that sustained energy. And for vegetarians, you definitely want to make sure that you are piecing your meals together in a way that you are getting a complete protein as well. You might not have as many sources of complete proteins that are going to be all in one, right? So you're going to have to piece together things like your beans, your legumes, your nuts and your seeds. And if you're eating dairy or maybe even fish or eggs, that would also create a greater variety to be able to get that protein in. And we don't want to forget fats. So fats, how it's going to be supportive of blood sugar balance is it helps with those satiety hormones in the body, which tells our body when we're satisfied with that meal. We feel nice and full, not stuffed or overly stuffed, but we feel satisfied with what we ate. So we don't have necessarily food cravings afterwards in regard to needing more food. And so it can help support that blood sugar balance by minimizing cravings. It's also going to be a source of energy for our body that doesn't typically have much, if any, sugars or carbohydrates. Now, there are fats like nuts and seeds, which do have some carbs, but they're also a beautiful package of nutrients as well as fibers, protein, and fat together. So it's not going to be super high in those carbohydrates typically. And so a lot of healthy fats, again, are going to be fats that are least processed, more close to their natural state. So like the closest you're going to get to that, again, are going to be nuts and seeds, maybe olives or avocados. Like they haven't really had much done to them, right? And then your next step is going to be things like maybe your butter, minimal processing. And then things, your oils that are basically pressed, not extracted or chemically processed or heat processed. So that's going to be things like your olive oil is pressed, even avocado oil is pressed, coconut oil, minimally processed. So the ones that we want to be aware of that are generally more highly processed are typically more of the seed oils, sunflower, safflower, soy. They are generally going to be utilizing techniques that are higher heat or maybe even potentially chemical extraction. So every time that we're doing that, we have the potential to damage those fats or potentially have chemicals left in the oil after the processing. So leaning more towards these whole food fats as well. Another important thing to note here too is, so we have water soluble and fat soluble vitamins. Well, our fat soluble vitamins, they absorb best when they're incorporated with a fat, but they also a lot of times tend to be contained in fat containing foods. And so it's going to give us a greater range of nutrients by incorporating some of these healthy fats as well. And even saturated fats, they're not all bad, right? Again, we just want to have quality healthy fats. because actually saturated fats are used as a source of energy for parts of the body, particularly the heart. But then also our cells' membranes require some saturated fat for the stability of the cell membrane. That's where our cells, the outer portion of those cells, actually communicate with their environment. So they absorb nutrients, or they get rid of waste products through the cell membranes. And we need saturated as well as unsaturated fats. They both serve different purposes. The saturated fats give that stability and rigidity to the cells, create that structure. And they also stabilize some of the less stable fats. So as you know, it takes higher heat to melt those saturated fats. They're more stable. And so your unsaturated fats provide fluidity to that cell's membrane so it can better exchange those nutrients and waste products. So you need both of those. You need the structure and the fluidity together. And then, not to mention, our brain is primarily made up of fats. The brain and the nervous system. So 60 to 70% fats. Something to keep in mind, our body does need those structural components to provide for our body. And so additionally, that last proportion of our meal that we want to consider is our energy needs. So that additional carbohydrates might be needed if you're someone who is highly active, so an athlete, or just, you're let's say you're exercising that day. You might need a few more carbohydrates that day, and you could definitely maybe get in a little bit more of those grains and legumes. Maybe some fruits or starchy vegetables would all be good options there. Again, more whole foods, like whole grains. Maybe if you're, let's say you're growing, you're a kid, kids are going to need a little bit more carbohydrates. So definitely we have slightly varied needs there as well. And then again, that fruit is going to provide a perfect treat. And that could be paired, ideally, we talked about the components of our meal that are balancing to blood sugar, which are going to include the nutrients and nutrient-dense foods, the fiber, the protein, and the fat. So we also want to take that to our snacks as well. So our meals need to be balanced that way, but our snacks need to be balanced as well. So when you do have that fruit, you might consider pairing it with something that contains either protein and or fats. And you've got some pretty typical pairings that are pretty common, like you've got maybe some fruit and cheese, or fruit and nuts or seeds, nut butters, and all of those would work really well there as well. And so when you're building these meals, you want to first think, okay, so I have half my plate veggies, an abundance of veggies, right? Do I have 20 to 30 grams, or the size of a palm of the hand portion of protein, a meat, or when it comes to those vegetable sources, we want to make sure we're getting an abundance and variety there, and vegetarian sources as well. And then we want to incorporate at least some fat at each meal. So those are the three main components that you're looking at. And then you can add on, depending upon your need, your energy need, the carbohydrates, and then maybe some fruits, right? Okay. And our blood sugar, it starts with the first meal of the day. It sets the stage for the rest of the day. The best we can make our breakfast, the best we're going to be able to go from breakfast to lunch without having those cravings or having to snack. And then we can, if we set the stage for the breakfast, a lot of times we can set the stage for lunch and then dinner as well. So again, building that meal with vegetables, protein, and fats. And a lot of times I'm going to show you some of these resources you can use to help support you in delving into this, but definitely, again, I can help you individually if you would like to talk with me one-on-one in tackling the approach. Like, how am I supposed to do that? Or what are some ideas? Can we create a menu or a plan to make this feasible for me? So failing to plan is planning to fail. We definitely want to maybe have an idea of what our meals are going to be at least maybe a few days in advance, if not a week, right? A lot of times people have time on whatever their weekend is to be able to at least have an idea of how they're going to build these meals so that you don't end up in these pitfalls of, okay, now I got to go grab something quick, or I have to go to this fast food restaurant because I don't have anything with me. And so but setting yourself up for success. So some of the resources we do have available in the store are those literature files, that literature file cabinet that we have at the kind of back corner between body care and then supplements, or that beer and wine section. That's going to contain a number of customer literature files, and these ones specifically can help guide you in your efforts as well. And we do have a book section. We've got a reference book podium as well as books for sale in our book department in the store, which is also back in that corner next to the beer and wine. And we're going to talk about, I want to show you some of those documents that Paul has sent you. So I'm going to go ahead and skip out of the presentation and then bring up some of these documents to kind of walk through these. Okay, so I'm not still sharing, correct? Am I?
Sorry, I was muted. You're not sharing yet.
Okay, so I will go back. Now, am I?
There we
Okay,
go.
great. I think because I clicked out of the presentation, it must have stopped the sharing.
Right.
All right. So this first diagram, what we call the healthy energy continuum, is kind of a guide to show you the difference between poor health and optimal health, and what things tend to put us on one end of the spectrum or the other. So basically, you're moving from the one end to the other, and there's going to be different components that can help best support us. So we talked about having those meals, and then having at least 3 meals, and then maybe 1 to 2 snacks in a day is going to help stabilize that blood sugar. So not skipping meals. So anytime you skip a meal, we can tend to go into that down, like that low, the blood sugar low, which then we end up right back in the blood sugar high if we've had too much time between meals. So roughly 4 to 5 hours between each meal is ideal, as long as that meal it had those components that are supportive of the different nutrients that we need. It should be able to sustain us that long. So if it doesn't, we need to look back at and say, did I have enough of the protein? Did I have some fat? Did I have an abundance of vegetables? And then take a look at that, and then tweak it a little bit each time until you found that your meals actually help give you that stable energy and support that healthy mood, and you're not having those cravings between meals. There's a few other components that we're also looking at here that we didn't really mention, but hydration is definitely a major component of health as well, just because all of our cells require a watery environment to be able to function. And when they aren't hydrated, that's when they typically tend to send us these signals that, hey, I can't function. And you'll experience those maybe with things like inflammation, pain signals. And so sometimes we might confuse dehydration with hunger. So also evaluating, when was the last time I drank something, right? Most people need at least 6 to 8 cups of hydrating beverages. And then at least having some movement every day. So that's the first place to start, is that we're staying moving as much as possible, whether it's just getting up every 15 minutes to stretch our legs and move around a little bit is going to be ideal. And then mental stimulation. So puzzles, learning something new, just keeping our brains young, right? Learning new things. And so also we can support our body's targeted needs with supplementation as well. And then if we take a look at some of the foundational supplements, I've gotten this little orange little corner here of the page. You see that a really good place to start is multivitamin and mineral to provide that range of nutrients that the body needs, kind of fill in some of those potential gaps in the diet. Of course, diet's foundational. You definitely want to start there, but filling in those gaps, because no meal is going to be providing exactly the same nutrients or consistently the amounts of nutrients that are in the Pacific Northwest. So having your vitamin D levels checked is definitely a good idea, and then supplementing accordingly. And then our typical American to balance that with things like our to help kind of balance those omega-6 response. And when you take a look at your specific about then evaluating your needs according to your diet. Are you wanting to just maintain here? You can see the slight differences in the proportions of nutrients that you might need according to your specific needs. So again, you're still going to see that vegetables are the greatest proportion, and then the second greatest proportion is going to be proteins. But if you're highly active, you're going to have more carbohydrate need, right? More energy requirement needs. And then if we are in this end of the spectrum where we're wanting to lose weight, or we're highly active and we're wanting to lose weight, then we can actually minimize those carbohydrates and increase those fats. They're going to be an alternative source of energy to meet our needs. So providing less sugars, less impact on that blood sugar balance, providing an additional source of energy outside of sugar to meet our needs. And then here is where you can track how you're feeling after your meal. So check marking if I felt full, didn't have cravings, if I did. And so what is my energy level? How am I feeling emotionally? And this will be a way to kind of see where on these charts you're going to what works best for you and your needs. And then this is the handout that I'm going to have Paul send out to all of you a little bit later. I thought that this might be kind of handy to give you a list of different foods that fit in each of those categories. So once you've decided how much of those categories you need to eat, building your meals are a lot easier when you have a list of options. I know everybody knows what a vegetable is or a protein. But I kind of, maybe I'll give that a try. It kind of helps to promote that variety, getting different nutrients into the diet instead of sticking with all the same so this can be a handy tool for that. So we've talked about how to build your meals and why you want to build your meals that way, how it's going to support more optimal health, but we want there's many ways or many have what resources do I have, right? And how much energy do I have to invest in maybe making a meal? So those are all different things that we might budget depending upon what more we have of what category. And so again, taking a look at how big size, and it's going to for our needs. You also want to make sure that you've scheduled some time to actually make this happen. And then again, like we said, starting with what you know, but then maybe branching out to some new things might kind of keep it interesting and lively. Or let's say something's on sale and you're like, I don't really know. I don't really know. And definitely getting the whole family involved. And then we typically do have quarterly coupon or off of a product. So definitely take a look at those. And then also, as Natural Grocers has an Empower program, if you sign up for the Empower program, you also will be allowed special pricing on certain products, particularly eggs and avocado. Those are a couple now for Empower members. So it can definitely make another key you know, whenever I do that, I end up buying snacks and then I get home and I'm like, basically, I'm going to defeat your purposes. Then while you're shopping, some things to keep in mind are taking a look at some of the frozen section. So if you're wanting to increase your vegetable intake, which I'd say most of us probably could use a little bit more vegetables in our life, long shelf life. So one good way to kind of get around that is to always make sure you have some frozen vegetables available, so that in a pinch you can definitely grab them out of the freezer. You're not have to worry about, okay, I'm doing my week of shopping, or if you're stocking up on frozen vegetables, you don't have to worry about them going to options for vegetables right away, so they're not sitting for a while and losing nutrient value until they're used. So they can actually be a really good source of nutrient intake. Foods, but then also green family a salad, if not multiple meals. I can usually get about 6 good meal-sized salads out of one of those big 16-ounce containers of lettuce greens. And there's options there too for a little bit of variety. Another thing to keep in mind is certain vegetables are going to get you more bang for your buck, or even quantity for your buck, like your cabbage. Once you shred that cabbage up, you're going to have a lot of vegetable, right? And you can even turn some of that into sauerkraut to extend its life as well, because fresh cabbage, I mean, it's hardier than lettuce greens, but it's still going to have only a certain amount of time in the fridge as well. So those are some things to keep in mind as well. Definitely eating in season. So eating in season, a lot of times availability is going to affect cost. So the more available, the less expensive things tend to be. So eating in season can definitely be a way to navigate price effectiveness and economy. So veggies. So when it comes to proteins, a lot of our cost-effective proteins are going to be things like our eggs are typically cost-effective, and if for Empower members, we do have special pricing where some of them are $1.99 eggs for a dozen. And so that definitely is going to be a cost-effective protein source. You could even do things like cottage cheese. If you think about a tub of cottage cheese versus one serving of meat, even could be another cost-effective occasional protein source. And it's actually pretty dense in protein, maybe even about 30 grams per serving. You could make a lasagna with that, right? And then we talked about how carb content of foods and legumes and grains, but it can still be a part of a healthy diet. And again, those are going to be a little bit more cost effective as well. So you might have a meatless Monday, kind of fit that in there, or maybe even do a half and half, like let's say a chili with half meat, half beans, kind of balance it out a little bit. And then cost effective fats. Fats don't tend to be, I mean, they're usually more of a garnish anyway, so they don't tend to be the limiting nutrient on our plate a lot of times, whether it's a garnish of cheese or maybe a little dressing with that olive oil vinaigrette type of a thing. So those don't tend to be the price limiting ones. They're smaller quantities on the plate. And then I like of the plant as possible. So if I'm cooking a squash, a lot of times I'll cut that squash, like a winter squash, in half, scoop out those seeds. I'll toast those seeds in the oven, just like your pumpkin seeds. And then you just got a little bit more bang for your buck. A lot of those seeds are really good sources of minerals like zinc. So yeah, use as much as you can of a plant that's edible. And when it comes to things like lemons and limes, I like to zest them. You could do that with oranges too. You could zest them, and you've also got more flavor to add to things like, if you're doing like a dish, go really well with Southwest foods, and so you can throw some of that in there as well. And yeah, I mean, there's so many ways to get creative. If you pickle things, pickled watermelon rinds, I guess. I haven't explored that one, but you're getting more components of the plant, more variety of nutrients, and you're getting more food out of your food. And then using your leftovers creatively. So I think everybody's had to be creative if you've ever done a turkey and then you had a ton of turkey left over after Thanksgiving. And so doing the same thing with your other meals. So like the turkey or the chicken, turning that chicken from like a roasted chicken into a chicken soup later on, or making it into a casserole or whatever else. Just getting creative with what you do have, adding a little bit of different things to it, tweaking a little bit, getting more meals. Prepares a meal, appreciates leftovers probably more than anybody else. So leftovers aren't necessarily a bad thing, right? And I wanted to provide you guys the seasonal availability chart, so that you can have an idea of when you are going to go shopping or creating your menu. You're like, okay, what veggies are in season right now that might be more cost effective to buy at this point in the year. And so this can be a really great tool. And you'll see some of them are available throughout the year. Like here you've got Asian greens available throughout the year. Some of them have a very short season. That's gonna be some of those berries, some fruits, apricots, boysenberries. So keeping that in mind when you're actually creating a plan. And then a menu planner so that you can write out and plan out each of the week's meals, as well as snacks and whatnot, so that you can have an idea of what you're going to prepare for. One thing I like to do too, if you are doing leftovers, is if you don't have time to cook a ton of different meals each day, I like to make a good sized dinner. And then I have leftovers from my lunch that I can bring to work with me. And a lot of times it's more cost effective to make a larger meal, the same meal, than it is to make a whole bunch of separate different little meals. And then you will build your shopping list according to what you put on that meal planner. Another thing to keep in mind is you can actually extend the life of some of your foods that you do buy by the refrigerating or freezing them. And a lot of that is going to be like your bulk foods. So nuts and seeds, you can extend the life to about 6 months in the refrigerator or 8 months in the freezer. So again, you can stock up with sales and then you can stick them in the fridge or freezer, and then they can last you a little bit longer throughout the year. And then dry bulk lasts about 6 months on the shelf, but it can last up to 1 to 2 years in the freezer as well. I experimented a little bit with cheese and freezing that. The only way I was able to get it to work very well for me was if you shred it. Of course, you know, there might be a certain amount of quality loss when you're freezing some stuff, especially if it's in the freezer for a longer period of time. But yeah, that was the only way I could get dairy or the cheese to last a bit longer, is shred it first, put it in a freezer bag and in the freezer. And it actually is easy then to take portions out of it as opposed to having a block that you can't really cut into. And then of course we did talk about hydration, and if you are wanting a nice filtered source of water, Natural Grocers does have a water machine that's 25 cents per gallon too. So that's definitely a cost-effective hydrating beverage, right? And then lastly, I kind of wanted to show you, can you guys see the website? So I brought up the Natural Grocers meal deal.
Cheryl, you might have to stop this share. We're still seeing the shopping list options.
So maybe new share.
Yeah, maybe stop this one and start a new share.
Okay, stop share. All right. See, we're still getting used to Zoom too. At least I am.
It's an ongoing process.
I know, right? Oh.
When we get used to it, they'll change things.
Now, can you see that?
Yeah, we got it.
Okay, great. So again, Empower members can actually even get these great prices on meals. So here there's meal deals that this one goes through the end of September. Feed the family of 4 a burger meal for under 12 bucks. That's pretty decent. And then here we've got a batch cooked chicken meal deal. Feed your family of 4 for under 13. So those are a couple of the meal deals that are Empower member exclusive that are going on right now that can actually, like each periodically, generally each month, there's something meal deal wise that you can incorporate to kind of get more bang for your buck as well there. And again, that's for Empower members. And if you want to sign up, all you have to do is go to this right here and then sign up now. And then it just needs your phone number, email address, and create a password. And then you can have the Empower benefits.
For free, right, Cheryl? It's free to sign up?
Yes, it is free. Yes, thank you, Paul. Yeah, and that's what I had for today.
Awesome. And because you attend this class, the meal's going to be $5 less.
I know, right? Yes. Yes,
I was just thinking that pasta meal for $4, if you have your $5 off coupon, I mean, you can't beat that.
Yeah. Any questions? Are everybody excited to plan their meals and have an idea of how they're going to make this happen? And if you want additional
Sorry, I got kicked out for a moment.
handout I will give to Paul in order to send forward to you guys for that additional list of what fits within those categories. Okay.
Yeah, I'll try to send that out today.
And then you put that link. Share chat pane, and you'll see that right there, how to sign up for it and how to get a voucher for it.
Yeah, sorry, y'all. My internet's freezing a little.
Hey, you just showed us a neat picture of you at Silk Goose.
Yeah, at the lake trail. Yeah.
Is that on your computer? Yeah. All right.
Did anybody have any questions or? Cool. Thank you all so much for coming. And thank you, Cheryl. As always, wealth of knowledge.